Rams Nation, welcome back to another edition of the Rams of Roundtable. This episode is Keys to Victory, Divisional Round of the playoffs against the Philadelphia Eagles. We'll be covering tons of updates on our roster, Keys to Victory, Rams versus Eagles history, their roster as a whole, and some other fun stats. So please share, like this video with all your fellow Rams and football fans out there, and this podcast as well. We appreciate everybody tuning in on the audio side of things. And dang it, I'm excited for this matchup. And gentlemen, here with me, I'm Ian. That's Mark. That's Paul. Everyone, how you guys doing?
Doing good, doing good. Good times. I know this is going to be a tough matchup, but we just got to enjoy it. Rams have a shot here.
Yes, they do. In the words of Andrew Whitworth, who talked to friend Jake Ellenbogen recently, he thinks we have a great shot, and I'm kind of feeling the same way. What about you, Paul?
East Coast love to the LA Ram. So, they're coming down my way, so it's going to be awesome. Looking forward to the game. I agree. I think the Rams got a fantastic chance.
Yep, I think so too. But Rams Nation, before we move on to that game, we'll just have some quick final thoughts on that fantastic Monday night win against the Vikings. As, gosh, I mean, just what a it was just such a good time to see that game unfold the way it did, as the Rams won, everyone, in case you did not know, 27-9. And I'll start with you, Mark. Your final quick thoughts on that game before we move on to the Eagles.
Well, I just want to use this opportunity. I handed out a bunch of game balls in the podcast the other night, and I talked about a bunch of guys, and I don't think I talked enough about Quentin Lake, and I don't think we've talked enough about that guy. He's a leader. He's the glue of this defense, and he stepped up. He had a couple of critical plays. I don't know if people realize how critical that failed to two-point conversion was. He made the tackle on Quentin Lake. I apologize for not giving you perhaps the game ball. I ran a little poll on the channel asking who deserves a game ball, the game ball, and Chris Shula actually won in a runaway, which I understand, but just a shout out to Quentin Lake. We're very, very lucky to have him back there on our defense.
Yep, very lucky too. And real quick, Rams Nation, my final thoughts. I love 12 personnel. I love seeing so much of it. I mean, I have this fun stat here. Let me get my little handy dandy notebook. As you can see, plenty of notes from, it won't pop up, Orchestrator Ram stuff and some other stuff after watching film. Rams ran 12 personnel and 13 personnel combined. Let's see, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 29 times that game. Beautiful number. Beautiful. Mixed in with obviously the normal 11, which is our staple. And I thought that was a big reason why we won that game, is that was my keys to victory last time, was be more multiple, run different formations and looks, use different groupings. It can't be just 11. We did that. We moved the ball, scored points. Higbee was a big factor. Tight ends were a big factor, right? Parkinson, Davis Allen scoring, Higbee's incredible catches, the blocking services, and all that fun stuff. That's my final thought. Great job. And then, of course, the defense balled out. But I love the 12. And then those, 4 times they ran 13 personnel. Wow. Chef's kiss to my run the damn football mentality. But, Paul, your final thoughts on this big win on Monday?
Yeah, complimentary football. All 3 phases came through. Special teams came through. Clutch kicks from Cardi. Great. Once again, Evans dropping it inside the 10. The offense just steady. McVay has given the keys to Optimus 9, and we saw that. We saw the leadership, the management on the field, and defensively, there's nothing more that can be said except, they were just lights out. So all 3 phases hitting on all cylinders. That's what the Rams need moving forward. They played a clean game, like we talked about, no turnovers. They looked rock solid. Just a great win, and build that momentum going into the Eagles game.
Yep, build that momentum. And with that said, Rams Nation, we'll turn the book just like the players, just like the coaches and the whole Rams organization. And we're on to Philadelphia, as now Rams at Eagles, divisional round playoff matchup, round 2 of this beautiful tournament. January 9th at 12 p.m. Pacific time for all you West Coast LA guys out there and gals, and 3 p.m. for all the East Coast or the Beast Coast, like Paul likes to say, for anyone rooting out there on that side of the country. Rams now 11-7, counting that Monday night win, the four spot. Eagles 15-3 after winning their matchup last week, the 2 seed in this national side of the bracket. But before we get into all the nitty gritty with that, Rams Nation, we have to get into your favorite time of these breakdowns and these keys to victory. Paul's Power Blocks, number 2, as we advance into the second round here. So we'll pull that up, and Paul, take it away, dude.
So, we have to start with the caveat we were just talking about the weather report. So a lot of this is going to go out the window because it looks like the weather's going to go south. But that's
real quick. Let's pull that up then before we get into
let's do it.
Then. So Rams Nation, the weather is going to be crappy for a West Coast team to go out there, as it is projected on that Sunday the 19th, as we have a great in-depth forecast here. Everyone tuning in on YouTube, watching the video, thank you very much. 37 degrees, so a colder temperature, as I believe the Jets game was in the low 20s, just to give you a comparison of the difference in weather. Almost 20 degrees cooler. Good news. So real feel will be closer to 32 with all the wind chill and all that. Wind gusts at 21 miles per hour projected. Humidity 66 because of it being cold in the eastern seaboard at this time, winter time. And then probability of precipitation, meaning will there be snow or rain or the slushy rain, which is I've experienced. That sucks too. There's a high chance, Rams Nation. And obviously rain, precipitation, snow, all the different depth and inches. Cloud cover, it'll be there, of course, because of the rain factor. Visibility will be on the lower tier because of all that. So we're going to get a wet and cold game, Rams Nation. Ugh. We'll see how we handle it as Paul unveils all the keys to his building blocks here as we go back to that now.
Yeah, and that's the perfect segue, because either way, we're going to discuss right afterwards how it's going to play out for the Rams. Is an advantage, disadvantage, whatever it may be. So just starting right off the bat from our win-loss indicators, we had identified time of possession, the red zone TD percentage, and the turnover differential. Obviously, the TOP is misleading because of the way the game played out. The Rams were firmly in control, probably in my opinion, from the second quarter out. Right. I don't know. That's just the way I saw it. You could see that they pretty much had the momentum, and the way they were playing, it was so efficient. It was so on the money. They were dictating the tempo. So the time of possession is a little misleading, but they were down 4 minutes. But take a look at the red zone. Like we said, it's got to be 50% or better. Bingo. There you go. 2 out of 4, 50% on the defensive side of it. Minnesota had 1 trip into the red zone, 0 for 1. Look at that. Fantastic. So we said that is going to be huge for the Rams. And just jumping ahead to Philly, that's going to decide the game. That statistic right there is going to decide the game. It's that simple. Look at the turnover differential. This is the type of Ram football that's winning football. They're on the plus side. They were a +2. There you go. So if you take a look at the 3 metrics we said for us that are going to be primary, 2 of them came out of the Ram favors. In all honesty, TOP, honestly, if they had to go for 4 quarters, they probably could have churned it out and probably added another 8-9 minutes for sure. And just to segue now into the Eagles versus the Rams, MJD, shout out to MJD, shout out to Andrew Whitworth, because I agree with them, and I know everybody in the Rams Up crew agrees. I think the Rams are a much better team than everybody is giving them credit for. All right. So people can say whatever they want about Minnesota. Minnesota only lost to 2 teams all year, the Lions and the Rams. Okay. That's the bottom line. So I think the Rams match up much better against Philly than at first blush. I just put on top of one another some comparisons of the Eagles and the Rams, the statistics. So if you take a look at this, on the top is Philadelphia, and on the bottom are the Rams. Let's take a look at the metrics for example. Obviously, we know Philly's all about time of possession. They hold the ball, they keep the ball, they want the ball. And doesn't surprise us that, right, they're at 32 and change. Look at the Rams. The Rams improved towards the latter part of the year. They got it up to 29 minutes, right? Slightly under that 50-50 mark. Okay, but we could definitely see Philly definitely has the advantage there. But take a look at these red zone numbers. I was surprised when I looked at the Eagles' red zone numbers. Look at their TD percentage, 56%, pretty good. Look at the Rams right there, 52%. Look at the defensive side of this. 49% with 49%, right? Much closer. Honestly, I thought it was going to be very, very different, but it turned out to be rock solid even, right? Interesting. So I think that's the story within the story. It's like, if you look at the season, it's a totally different story, but we're not in the season anymore. We're in the playoffs, and it's a totally different narrative. If you take a look at the turnover differential, take a look at the Eagles, plus 11. That's a great number. When you're in double digits in TO differential, that's a great number. Rams are right there at 0-6. The Rams have done over the last month and a half an exceptional job at eliminating turnovers and generating takeaways. And that trend, we saw that in Minnesota. Hopefully that trend continues. I think it will. I think the team is coming to life on the defensive side of the ball. They're just playing that sort of pin your ears back and get after it type of football. We're not seeing those defensive breakdowns in the secondary. To me, that's been the biggest difference in this defense right now. Two things: tackling and the lack of these huge breakdowns in the secondary in terms of coverage. And that really has translated into phenomenal play. But if you look, they match up much better than most people anticipate. And just taking a look at some other statistics, obviously, and we have to start by talking about the rushing yardage. Philly is probably the premier rushing team in the league, probably 1A, 1B with the Ravens, right? You could argue that point, right? Because, Henry is just an absolute monster, and Lambeau Lamar, you can't mess with him. But just take a look at this: 178 to the Rams, 103. The Rams do have the capacity, though, to, in certain games when they need to, they could turn it up and they can crank out a 150, 160-yard game easily. No question about it with their offensive line. And we were just talking, I was joking around. I'd go Rhino and tell Jonah Jackson, listen, you're the second tight end for a couple of plays, and just get after it and hammer some people with iron iron. Take a look at the passing yards, and this is the real advantage for the Rams, and which is where the weather might negate a real advantage for the Rams, is in the passing yardage. Jalen Hurts, 184. Look at the Rams. They're at 226. They were at number 9 at the end of the season in terms of passing yards. That's a huge advantage for the Rams. They are a top 10 passing team. And we talked about them being able to resurrect that deep passing game. When you are playing a Fangio defense, you have the seams. You have the seams all game. They will give you the intermediate routes. That's what that defense is designed to do. They want to see, are you going to be patient? Are you going to be smart? That's where the Rams were starting to heat up. We saw the tight ends last week get involved, put a big smile on my face as well as the rest of the Rams up crew. We saw Iron Kyren getting some catches out of the backfield. There it is. That's how you do it. So that's something where the weather, I think, will really hurt the Rams, will be in that passing game, because I think that's a huge advantage for the Rams. Look at the sacks and the sacks allowed. 41-45 for Philly, right? And a large number of those sacks are because we got our boy back there, Jalen, who loves to run around a little bit. But you can get at him, right? They do give up a bunch of sacks. That line is really predicated on what? Moving people up front. So you can get after them with speed and some scheming, and you can really get after them and get after Jalen. Look at how well the Rams have done, 38-31. Over the last 7 games, the Rams have kept Stafford clean, and that has been the difference. Stafford looks energized. He looks confident, but more importantly, he looks secure back there. He's confident. He's looking downfield. You don't see the happy feet, and he is throwing absolute missiles. So having said that, and now after we just went over the weather report, we're like, oh, darn it, right? And then the third down percentage, and this is what really hurt the Rams all year, was their third down percentage. But they've done a much better job over the last couple of weeks. So once again, you don't really see any runaway stats here, except where? In the ground game, right? And that's something that, obviously we'll talk about in greater detail. My keys to the game in terms of when we talk about power blocks, it's right here. The conversation must begin. You must stop Saquon Barkley. There is no other game plan. Everything else is just smoke and mirrors. You have to stop Saquon Barkley. And that's easier said than done, right? He wouldn't have the numbers that he has if it was so easy. Go ask Green Bay, right? So they did a great job for a couple of quarters. And then same thing that happened to us, just got worn down, right? But they have to be able to stop the run. And there are a lot of different ways that they can do that. But also they have to sprinkle in, and there's one statistic that Ram Nation we were just talking about is really, really important. Jalen does really well against man coverage. His numbers, man versus zone, are literally night and day. His numbers are like so superior against man coverage as opposed to zone. So if the Rams, obviously they're going to play a ton of zone in this game, but they do have to sprinkle in at strategic times. They have to blitz the edge. We have seen that. They have been very, very effective with Lake, with Curl. We saw it with Kobe Durant, picking their spot and coming in off the edge. And that's also a great way sometimes to stop the run, right? When you feel like, you know what, you could sneak in a blitz and catch someone in the backfield, something of that nature. That's going to be really effective for the Rams. I say put this game on the quarterback's shoulders. Make him throw it. Make him throw it to the strength of your team, which is what? Your pass rush. Your pass rush and your veteran secondary. That's the way I think this game should play out. Once again, very easy to do on paper, but you have to meet their physicality with your own physicality. And the Rams have been a much more physical team. Once again, shout out to Boom and Omar Spates, just bringing the lumber every time in the run game. So the other thing is, if you have to really challenge the Eagles' wide receiver depth, people talk about AJ, they talk about Devontae, but what about after that, right? Goddard, of course, we saw what he could do, an absolute monster, right? Once he gets the ball. The Eagles want you to tackle in space. They want to get it to those three players as well as Saquon in space. They want to make you tackle in space. So I think the Rams have to be able to challenge that wide receiver depth. Make them go to their third read, their fourth read, right? Are those players like that, like their third or their WR3, their T8 tight end 2, right? Are they good enough to beat the Rams on a consistent basis? I think that's an area that they can definitely win out. The one other thing that, just to build off of what happened in Minnesota, full use of the assets. I just thought that was absolutely what we've been talking about for 2 weeks. The strength of this team, not by design, it just sort of played out that way. And that's the beauty of sports. It's not what you designed week one. It turned out you have a tight end room that is just absolutely loaded, right? And McVay smartly said, you know what? Let's use them. Let's go in that direction. Use of the tight ends, use of that wide receiver depth. We saw that. They are 6 deep at wide receiver, and also with the D-line. And I think that is crucial. Going into a game like this that is going to be physical, you must keep that D-line fresh. You must be able to hold up at the line of scrimmage, and not just hold up, get penetration. So we saw Deshaun Johnson got a lot of good reps. Tyler Davis got a lot of good reps. Gilmore got a lot of really good reps just in time for this game. You're going to have to keep that D-line fresh so the big boys like Fisk, Turner can get after it, and Jared Verse, BY, use obviously Hollywood Hoyt. So being able to rotate those guys and keep them fresh, get these guys on the field, let them make plays, keep your boys fresh. Stay balanced. We have talked about that time of possession. That's going to be huge. Don't let this game get away from you. That's what Philly's counting on. Do not let this game get away from you. In my opinion, this is going to be a short game. Both teams are going to try to run. That clock is going to be moving. Before you know it, we're probably going to be in the second half at the blink of an eye. So this game, you must stay balanced, keep it close, and like I said, attack the seams. It will be there. It's going to be there all game. And, of course, in Optimus 9, we trust, right? Hopefully the weather cooperates. If we have to go to ground and pound, I think the Rams are going to surprise a lot of people. I think Aaron Kyren, and with these tight ends and that short passing game, they can play action, and even in bad weather, I think they can move the ball fairly consistently. So I'm looking for a great game, a physical game. This is going to be a black and blue game. You got to love it.
Yeah, and speaking of Optimus 9, Glock 9, the Winter Soldier, as some are calling him now, with this fun stat, Rams PR cranking out. So two of them here, actually, Rams Nation. Quarterback Matthew Stafford has thrown multiple touchdown passes in each of his first 6 playoff games since arriving in Los Angeles, becoming the first quarterback to accomplish the feat with a new team. Wow. Since 2021, Stafford has a 19-3 record from December to February. His .864 win percentage is the best among all quarterbacks all time. I mean, wow. That is amazing. I mean, dude is a baller, and we're so glad he's our quarterback. Hey, Rams Nation, please mention Kevin Demoff and anyone else. Resign this man if he wants to play, of course, which he said gazillion times. He wants to continue playing. Figure it the hell out. Anyway, with that said, golly.
And he has experience in the bad weather because remember, I played in that division in Detroit, right? So he's used to going to like Chicago and all these different places to play. So that's going to be this is not something that's new to him. So he truly is the Winter Soldier.
He is the Winter Soldier for sure. And before we get into some other good keys and go even more into depth with this Eagles matchup coming up, we do have some Rams roster/injury updates as we all saw Tyler Higbee go down in that game with a chest injury. It still hasn't been unveiled to the public exactly what happened. But McVay did say he was coughing up blood on the sideline. They did have to yank him, send him to the hospital, as we did talk about in the post-game reaction. But McVay says he does anticipate Higbee being ready to go for this game against Philadelphia. So hopefully it is nothing serious. It sounds very similar to what Kobe Durant had in that Buffalo Bills game where he was also coughing up blood. He had like a lung contusion, a lung bruise. So that kept him out, a game for Kobe. Hopefully that's not the case with Higbee, as we all saw him in 12 personnel getting all the crazy catches and route trees for a tight end. Hopefully he's okay. Hopefully he can play in this game. That'll be a big deal if he does or doesn't. And then Bobby Brown, Alard Jackson dealing with stuff from the game, as nobody practiced for the Rams today as they gave everybody off. So those are things that were on the injury report. And then Ahkello Witherspoon, who got yanked from that Monday night game with a hamstring injury. That's another big one. He's a coin flip in the air. I mean, those hammies, as we know, Darius Williams was on IR because of that, on and off to start the year, starting from the offseason. Cooper Kupp had IR stands due to hamstring stuff. And other players you can think in recent memory, Rams Nation. So not great that that's the thing, but we'll see how serious it was. What grade is it, right? 1, 2, or 3? Hopefully it's on the 1 tier, maybe even a 0.5. I know it's not real, but you know what I mean. And we're hoping our guys are ready to go because we're going to need all hands on deck for this Eagles game, right, Mark?
Yeah, I saw, according to McVay, insiders anyways, Tyler Davis and Joseph Noteboom would be the next man up for Bobby Brown and Alaric Jackson, respectively. And Kobe Durant, he would have to step up, obviously. I feel a little bit better about that. I saw an interview with Sean McVay yesterday from one of the Rams insiders labeled update on the Rams injury situation. And basically McVay was tight-lipped. Sean McVay is, I really don't have anything for you. I got nothing to tell you. We'll see.
I like that. But, I mean, Paul, your thoughts on all the injury stuff going on right now?
Yeah, I mean, listen, like for Big Rig, it's just like, he's leaking a little bit of oil, pit stop, and he's ready to go. This dude, I mean, I don't even know how he's going to play this game. If he was, from what they were saying, he was coughing up blood, getting transported to the hospital. But, we'll keep our fingers crossed. Hopefully, safety first. But it would be great to see him out there. But once again, he's just an inspiration to the whole team. Bobby Brown's going to be huge because they need every D lineman and they need his size, particularly when it comes to stopping the run. The hamstring for Witherspoon, he was playing phenomenal. Hopefully, like you said, it's not worst case scenario. They might have to use him in spots, right? Just to get through the game, right? If he's ready to go, and just so that he doesn't fully injure himself. But like we said, that champagne problem now is coming to bear, right? So that's the advantage, that depth. You can never have too much depth. And in this case, Durant might start. They might sprinkle a Witherspoon in certain situations. But once again, being able to bring a veteran off the bench, huge, absolutely huge. McVay has always downplayed everything. He said the Alaric Jackson situation is not a big deal. He'll be fine. But always you get after that McVay speak, and then we find out like Alaric Jackson, is out for the season. So we'll see what happens. We'll keep our fingers crossed until Friday and Saturday. But I just think like getting a Higbee on that field, just even getting him on the sideline, even if he doesn't play, is just going to be so important for the Rams, because right now he is like their inspirational leader, right? I think they're really looking to him and looking at him because he does really embody this entire season for them.
Yeah, all these guys need to be ready to go. We cannot have any of them miss time, as it'll be incredibly detrimental to our possible chances of winning this game in cold weather on Philadelphia on Sunday afternoon. But, oh, baby, Rams Nation. Rams versus Eagles divisional round playoffs on that Sunday afternoon game here. Afternoon game on the East Coast as well. As I think it's important to go through really quick what the hell happened in that Week 12 Sunday night game when the Eagles absolutely smoked us 37-20. As I was there at that game, I'm hoping for more of the game in my background photo where Higbee had 3 touchdowns back in 2020, not an ass kicking on prime time or for the nation and the world to see like we saw earlier in that game. So real quick, Brendan Graham kicked our ass. N'Kobe Dean kicked our ass. A.J. Brown kicked our ass. And both sides of the trenches overall kicked our ass, right? Eagles O-line bullied us. Eagles D-line bullied us. Other than Nakua going off, our entire wide receiving core and tight end core just got absolutely locked up. Kyron fumbled twice. And then who can forget this by Saquon? Saquon Barkley torched the Rams in their regular season meeting from 33rd team, who always has good stats and runs different social media accounts. 255 rushing yards, Rams Nation. 302 total scrimmage yards. So that means from receiving and catching, not adding any kickoff or stuff. 302. 9.8 yards per attempt. 156 yards after contact. 2 touchdowns. And that is the highest total of any running back, any player this entire 2024 season, with the 255 rushing yards and then the total 302 scrimmage yards. It was absolutely a brutal ass kicking on both lines of scrimmage. Me and Paul and Mark, we all look back at that film from that Week 12 matchup. It was horrible. I mean, we got embarrassed. Everyone got shoved around. Obviously, Rob Havenstein did not play in that game, as Warren McClendon just got abused along with all the other O-linemen, let's just be honest. And then our D-linemen just got abused as well by their O-line. But, gosh, I'll start with you, Mark. Bad times in that Week 12 game.
Hey, I think a couple calls go our way, we win that game. No, I'm kidding. That was not a fun game. Yeah. And, maybe we can use this to the Rams' advantage. Maybe the Rams will use it to their advantage. Maybe the Eagles come in a little cocky. Maybe our defense has improved just enough to throttle them just a little bit, right? And even things up. And I think that's what we need to do. Keep him, he's probably going to, I said this about Justin Jefferson last week, actually. He's going to get his 100 yards, and we held him to, 58? Saquon Barkley is going to get us 120. Well, maybe we hold him to 90, and that's a win. And at the same time, we, get Kyron going a little bit. This is a different Rams team since then, and I'm not trying to disrespect the Eagles and, I understand what they did to us last time, and I have a lot of respect for them. But I also think that this Rams team is quite a bit different at this point. Going to be a challenge, but I don't think that's going to happen again, what you're showing there on the screen.
Oof, I hope not. Paul, your happy memories watching that game Week 12.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I couldn't get through the fourth quarter. So, it's time for the Rams to exercise those demons, right? That was a tough game. That was actually a tough stretch of the season also for the Rams when it came to run defense. But they're much more physical. One thing I will definitely say about this defense right now, they are playing at the height of their physicality all season. You haven't seen this level of physicality from the secondary, the linebackers, and especially up front. So that's fantastic. So I think it has a lot to do with also the mind space. Like, sometimes it takes time for teams to realize their identity, who they are, and yet, you have a couple of young players on this defense that are starting, like obviously Jared Verse from day one. He knew he was physical, but how to use it in such a way that he can be productive and not compromise the entire defense. That's something he's talked about, and particularly when you're holding the edge. Same thing with BY. The inside linebacking has improved dramatically. Safety play has improved dramatically. But the thing with Saquon is he's such a talented back. So you try to stifle him, on the ground, they'll give it to him in the air. Right? They'll run screens to him. They'll run wheel routes to him. He is so dangerous when he runs those wheel routes. I mean, if he gets one, it's gone. He's gone. There's nobody catching him. So that's the thing about it. Like, you really have to have all 11 knowing where 26 is at all times. So you had mentioned Captain Lake. So that's going to be key. Guys on defense being able to call it out, be aware, get everybody lined up properly, make sure the Rams are gapped up from the beginning of the play, being able to react to motion properly. That those little things are where you can get beat by a player like Saquon Barkley, because he will find the cutback lane. He will find the open gap. He will find the busted coverage. And then it's a quick six. And that's not what you want. Make them go the length of the field. It's okay. They want to run it. Make them go the length of the field. And that's okay. The Rams have enough offensive firepower that they can, score with any team left in the playoffs. That's my opinion. That's not the issue. The issue is, can they make teams earn every point? If they can do that, the game is going to shift in the Rams' favor.
Yeah, no more of a Saquon career day or any Eagles, any all-time. We don't need any of that. As again, Rams Nation, we got smoked in that Week 12 matchup, 37-20. So no Devontae Smith that game. He will be playing this game, but no Nakobe Dean this upcoming matchup, as he played last week and killed us a bunch. So let's wipe that from our memory and on to new matchups and hopefully better outcomes for sure, as we'll get into this Eagles roster immediately and who are the people we need to worry about as we start with the offense here, Rams Nation. We have A.J. Brown, who Darius Williams in our past coverage just had no answer for. Quinn Lake couldn't cover him. Darius Williams couldn't cover him. It was a bad day. Then you have, in my opinion, I think we all agree, as we were talking about it earlier before we started the show here today, that this is the best O-line. We said that in Week 12. We said it again here in our pre-show meeting. I don't even think it's debatable. I know people are like, oh, Lions and other. No, this is the best O-line in football. Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson, Cam Jurgens, Mekhi Becton, the former Jet reject, who's fantastic. Lane Johnson, probably a future Hall of Famer. Dallas Goedert at the tight end spot, who's a part of that O-line in the running surface. And then the other receivers, of course, Jahan Dotson, traded from Washington to the Eagles. Devontae Smith, who did not play in that Week 12 matchup, he'll be back. Saquon Barkley, we already talked enough about him. And then Jalen Hurts, who we just could not get any pressure on or could not run him down. It was very unfortunate in that game. So I'll start with you, Mark. Your quick thoughts on this Eagles offense. I know we talked about Saquon a bunch already, though.
Yeah, three of these guys on the offensive line named to the Pro Bowl. That says it all there, right? And we saw Dallas Goedert with the double straight arm last week was pretty impressive. Yeah, it's a very, you try to identify the weak unit, offense and D. We'll get to the defense later. There really isn't a weak unit here. That offensive line, especially, that's probably should be our biggest concern here.
Yep. A bunch of ballers on this side of the ball, Paul. I mean, this whole line, though, dude.
Yeah, Yeah, well, listen, if the Rams want to be the champs, they're going to have to be, the best. So right now, this O-line is probably the most physical O-line in the league, right? But it's hard to argue that point. And the Rams have to match that physicality. There's no doubt about it. This game's going to be won and lost like the old days, man, at the line of scrimmage, right? No matter what anybody said, that's where it's going to be won or lost. The Philadelphia's game plan is going to be very simple. And like Mark said, they probably have that burnt into their gray matter. They're like, oh, you remember when we rang up 300 yards? That's where they're going to come in. They want to replicate that. So, the Rams have to be able to match them, shot for shot up front. And like I said, the physicality of the D-line is going to be absolutely essential. The outside backers have been absolutely monstrous, right? With Verse and BY and Hoyt. Got some great reps from Keir Thomas. That's going to be huge as well. Got some great reps from the interior linemen like Tyler Davis. They're not just backups; they're giving us quality of playing time. So it's going to be a great game. It's going to be an absolute great game. If you take a look at this offensive unit, you have to play. You're going to have to bring your A game. And I think this is the type of game that's going to be really, really good for the Rams because it's going to challenge them. They're in a good headspace right now. I think it's going to help them maintain focus. I don't think you're going to see any letdown.
I hope not, because dang it, they absolutely abused us last time, as we mentioned earlier. And then flipping to the defensive side, as there were some moments where we were able to get points on them, but this Fangio-led defense, who, again, let's just call it what it is and be honest about it. Sean McVay worships this man. He does. He does. There's been interviews and stuff where they've questioned about defenses. He always brings up Fangio. And, of course, we hired and continue to hire guys that run the system to some fashion or another. Very zone heavy, very match zone heavy, sprinkled in with obviously other things that every coordinator brings their flavor to a defense. But with this, group being coordinated by Fangio, fantastic group. Nolan Smith is now starting in place of an injured Brandon Graham, who tore his triceps in that game against us in Week 12, where he just absolutely obliterated everyone on the O-line. Well, he won't be around, but Nolan Smith, who's been playing really good, is thrust into the lineup, as you will see Bryce Huff and others. Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, Milton Williams, all bulldoze our O-line in previous matchups. Then we have Josh Sweat, of course, rotating in. No Nakobe Dean, as he blew out his knee in this last wild card game. That's unfortunate, as I assume Oren Burks will have to step in. But then you have all-pro Zach Bond, inside linebacker. You have Darius Slay, Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, CJ Gardner-Johnson, Reed Blankenship, and then you might see some Ringo if needed, maybe some Maddox, Sidney Brown, some Tristan McCollum, as they all get sprinkled in certain packages depending on the game. But, I mean, Mark, a Fangio-led defense who held us in check for the most part last game, got to go up against it again and hopefully get a dub.
Yeah, and I hate to bring this up, but that was the first game where there was an inkling of some Cooper Kupp struggles, I think. I remember he had a real difficult time separating from Cooper DeJean, Cooper versus Cooper there. So hopefully the Rams, maybe Big Vay has some special plays designed to help Cooper out or help our wide receivers beat this really good cornerback group with Darius Slay, Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean. Really challenging assignment there. It's a good unit. You try to identify the weakness here. Where is it? I don't know.
Maybe Oren Burks filling in, but another tough matchup, right, Paul? I mean, your quick thoughts on this defense.
Yeah, right. The only thing you could really look at is that linebacker spot, maybe some depth of the D-line. They also, remember, they made that trade, for their own BY, Byron Young, right, from the Las Vegas. They just activated him, so that's interesting, right? They know that they want some D-line depth for this game, so I wonder if he'll be activated for the game. But this is a tough unit. This is a really tough unit, and you take a look at the numbers when you talk about Vic Fangio, right? So they lead the league. They have the highest cover 6 rate at 21%. They play cover 1 23% of the time. They play cover 3 35% of the time. In quarters, they're 19% of the time. But they're playing man coverage. Think about this secondary, how talented it is. They're able to play this challenging zone setup 70 to 75% of the time and still play man at a very high level. The quarterback rating for this unit is below 70. That's their QBR. That's how well they play man. Now, they obviously, look, everybody you hire is a replicator, but Fangio's the innovator, right? He's the real deal. So way he runs it is going to be very different than everybody else. So isn't it an advantage that McVay's familiar with it, right? McVay loves it because this was the design that shut down his offense and gave him fits, right? So that's why he's enamored with it. But in this game, it's going to be interesting. So when they man up, the same way the Rams have that prototypical, they have that size weight ratio. They look at wide receivers. Look, Ram Nation, at the Philadelphia corners, 6 feet, 190, 195, all of them, right? That's what they want. They want those guys in a Fangio defense. They want to keep everything in front of them. They want to play downhill. They hate backing up. That's the Fangio philosophy, particularly when it comes to defense. So this unit, I mean, they'll take their chances playing man, and when they do blitz, he loves that fire zone, which where they'll play that 3 under, 3 deep behind it. That's the Fangio scheme. The Rams have to be able to take advantage of it. But either way, this is a great unit. And if there was a weakness, it's really maybe that backup linebacker spot we saw because of the injury to Dean, and maybe a little depth of the D line. I watched that Green Bay game, and I mean, half of that was Josh Jacobs because he's a beast, but they were moving the chains. They're in the ground game, and Kraft with that physicality. So to me, I was like, all right, well, we got Aaron Kyron and we got some tight ends that can do that. That might be the recipe to go after this team. And Rams got to exploit that size at wide receiver. They really do. They have some, obviously Puka and some others they can really exploit their size at wide receiver. Some inside routes, some slants, some quick slants, or some fades. I think it's a good matchup for the Rams. But you got to respect this unit. They play whistle to whistles. It's going to be a 60-minute brawl.
Yeah, and this is the best roster we faced earlier in the year, and this will probably be the best roster we face anytime if we do advance the rest of this playoff tournament. Let's just call it what it is. Golly, it's a good group. And as we go through real quick, some of their best players, New York Giants legend Saquon Barkley, had 2,000 plus rushing yards with 13 touchdowns, and I'm sure he would have had a lot more if Jalen Hurts didn't do tush push brotherly shove his way into 14 rushing touchdowns. Jalen Hurts, a little under 3,000 yards passing, 18 touchdowns, 5 INTs, nothing crazy. As AJ Brown's frustrated reading books on the sideline with his 1,000 yards, 7 touchdowns, and then like we mentioned earlier, 3 Pro Bowl players on that O-line, Dickerson, Johnson, Juergens, and you can probably argue all of them deserved it, and all of them deserve to be all-pro. Ridiculous. And then on the defensive side, real quick, Rams Nation, Zach Bond, an all-pro, 150 tackles, 3.5 sacks, 5 forced fumbles, interception, a fumble recovery. He had another interception in his last wild card playoff matchup. Ridiculous. Dude was a steal of the season in terms of free agent signings, in my opinion. Jordan Davis, Carter, all the other guys we mentioned. It's a ridiculous roster. Ridiculous. But with that said, Rams Nation, how about some history real quick? I mean, how has this Rams team done overall since the year 2000? As I know, we went through the previous matchup where it did not go so well. And we're like, let's not see that type of crap again. Let's go through it. So here we are since the year 2000, and if you're tuning in on YouTube, watching the video with us, the yellow line upward is since McVay has been our coach, and then everything downward is pre-McVay, of course, since the year 2000, as not very many W's since the century has turned, Rams Nation out there. But the last time we faced this Philadelphia Eagles team in the playoff tournament for a meaningful win-or-go-home game was, if you remember, the 2001 season, which would be the 2002 NFC Championship, St. Louis Rams beating the Philadelphia Eagles 29-24. So that is our last playoff matchup, as obviously we went on to that season and lose against the Patriots, unfortunately, as we should have won that game. But that was that last time we played Philly in the playoffs. But other than that, a lot of L's. McVay's only beaten them once, was that 2020 matchup where Higbee had 3 touchdowns. We need more of that this game. And McVay is just not done well against the Eagles, no matter who the quarterback's been, no matter who's the roster on that roster, and no matter who's the head coach. I mean, really incredible, right, Mark?
Yeah, and I think McVay is going to have something up his sleeve in this game on offense, and it's not the best conditions, obviously, with the snow and rain, but he's got to be super motivated to dream up something special for this Eagles defense. And I think maybe it's we were predicting the emergence of Jordan Whittington for 2 months now. It seems like maybe this is the game. I don't know. Yeah, and all those losses in between the greatest show on turf and the rival of McVay. I mean, you can almost throw those out. The Rams lost to everybody in that period. At least it seems like that. So yeah, I still like our chances. I know it hasn't looked good the last 5 years, but hey, it's a playoff game. It's entirely different. And Sean McVay, if he wants to go down if he's not the best coach in football, if he can pull something off here, man, he might be the best coach in football if we win this game.
Yep, I hope so. I mean, Paul, your thoughts on Rams versus Eagles history and not so good one since McVay's been our coach.
Yeah, this is the perfect game to talk about history because the Rams are really going to try to wipe the slate clean. They've got some, I'm just talking about the most recent memory, but I agree with Mark. I think the coach that is able to adapt to whatever those weather conditions are going to be in this game, right, is going to win this game. It's going to be that simple. Who's ever going to be able to implement what they need to do in whatever that weather scenario is going to decide this game. It's that simple. And just from my opinion, McVay is going to try to extend that running game. He's like, yes, I know I got Aaron Karen. I know I got the Havenstein monster. I know I got Big Ray Higgs and a bunch of blocking tight ends and K-Dot and Limmer and all that. But how can I extend this running game? With those wide receivers, get them the ball quickly, let them run with it. And we talked about let the Rams exploit their size at wide receiver. They want to tackle these big guys in space, let them go right ahead. I'll roll the dice with the big boys. So I think that'll be a nice way to extend the running game, get these tight ends involved early like they did in that Minnesota game. That made a huge difference, right? We saw the physicality with guys like Kraft, right? And obviously, in other tight ends throughout the playoffs that have really, really shown up big. I mean, the way that the Rams are going to be able to extend their ground game is in those scenarios with the tight ends and their big wide receivers. Get them out in space, get them quick touches, get those jet sweeps rolling. And with the Fangio defense, a nice way that you can attack it is with those late shifts. Force that other team to gap up properly. Force that other team to adapt to it because that's what they want. They're going to show you that too high look, and they're going to wait to post snap that's what they want. They want the quarterback to have to hold it for another second, right, to actually figure out what's going on. So that's a nice way they can attack. It might play into their hands, but the weather's going to really be just like the X factor here.
Yep, it will be. And oh man, I mean, a fun stat about McVay on the East Coast, other than Philadelphia for the most part in his 10 years, playing them. Hey, at least McVay's 17-9 on the Eastern time zone. That benefits us. He has not just a little bit over 500. He has a massively almost 2-to-1 ratio with winning on the East Coast. So that's good news for us. Hopefully that continues. Again, as the last time he was out there in Philly, we smoked them on that 2020 COVID year. Again, Higbee having 3 touchdowns. We need more of that. I'm going to talk it into existence, Rams Nation. But with that said, let's talk some keys to victory, gentlemen, even though I know we've done a bunch already, but let's get to the nitty gritty of it. And I think it's important, real quick, just to recap here. The Eagles, their only losses are to the Falcons. When Saquon dropped a game-sealing little easy catch into the flat, they would have beat the Falcons for sure on that primetime game. They had that week 4 loss against the Bucs, as the Buccaneers seem to be their kryptonite the last handful of years for whatever reason. Week 16 against the Commanders, where, Jaden Daniels came back with them after Jalen Hurts got hurt. I think it's important to mention that. And then, they convincingly, beat down the Green Bay Packers in the wild card game there. But I think on top of that, though, Rams Nation, it's important to go through some stats real quick. I know Paul had beautiful stats, but it's important. Let's bring up ours. And I know new season, playoff games, throw them out. Some people like to say it, but I still think it's important to go through real quick because, Eagles offense, fantastic, but passing on the lower tier as they ran the ball so dang well. Rams defense, middle of the pack, bottom 10 because of Saquon's, super stats screwing up a lot of this. And then Rams offense, passing's great. Rushing should be better. Hopefully will be better going forward. Points per game on the lower tier with everyone hurt. And then Eagles defense is a top 3 unit, arguably number 1. I think they're the best unit in football. Yeah, but we move on and we hope for bigger and better performances other than what we got earlier in the season. But let's get into it, gentlemen. And I'll start with you here, Mark. What is your key to victory? Offense, defense, and special teams, of course.
Well, I think to me it's kind of obvious, and we've been talking about it. The Rams have to be successful moving the ball on the ground. I think they also, now, how do they do that? They got to be a little creative. I still want to see Jordan Whittington get some touches behind the line of scrimmage. I don't care if if it's a sweep, a jet sweep, screen plays, even hand the ball off to the guy. I don't care. Get him the ball. He could be a real difference maker, but move the ball on the ground. And I think, we'll take our shots with the passing game, obviously. And then obviously can we limit to Barkley to, I don't know, somewhere around the century mark? That would be a win. And on special teams, I'm kind of concerned about Cardi in cold weather. I'm really happy with what he's done so far. Ethan Evans, I'm not concerned about him. Hopefully Cardi can come through if the weather is, but I don't think the Eagles kicker is anything special. And then of course you have, our return game's been pretty good. It hasn't been no splash plays recently, but we could do some damage there. Xavier Smith, Jordan Whittington in the return game. Again, on special teams, you see what happened on the opening kickoff there with Green Bay. You just don't want any devastating plays, no destructive plays. Keep it clean, run the ball on offense, slow down Barkley, and hopefully we get a couple breaks along the way.
Yeah, but that's my hope too. And then Rams Nation, my quick keys to victory. I think it's pretty damn simple. Again, real quick, let's just flash this for anyone who didn't pay attention earlier. Weather's going to suck. Don't expect some high flying. Matthew Stafford's going to be chucking all over the yard like he was on Monday in some other games this season. Very, very unlikely with a wet football being the case. So, unfortunate. But I think what's going to be key in this game offensively is to control the clock. You have to hold on to the football more than the Eagles. You just have to. It has to be that way. Kyron has to be able to get 25 or more carries minimum. And then on top of that, not fumble the football. Fumbled twice in that prior Eagles game we talked about earlier. And then had a fumble and an almost fumble in this Monday night wildcard game. So I love Kyron. Iron Kyron, as we like to call him here on this podcast network. But dude has to secure the football. And if it's especially wet, snowy, rainy, slushy, whatever the hell the wetness is going to be on that game, is going to be extra important that he holds on to that rock and not give it up. Because if he has a turnover, I mean, forget it. We're probably losing that game. That'll probably end up being the difference in this game if he coughs it up at anywhere on the football field, even red zone, their field. I mean, he has to hold on to this football. And obviously Stafford take care of the football too, but running the ball and I think just being versatile, like I proclaimed last week. We're going to run 11 personnel, 3 wide receiver stuff, but I think it's very important as I grab my notepad here. So like I talked about earlier, 29 times 12 or 13 personnel, that's got to be a main focus again this game. But I think what's also very chin scratching, I wonder how this is going to trend in this game coming up, as Mark did mention that Cooper DeJean was white on white crime in that game as Cooper DeJean locked up Cooper Kupp. And like you said, that was the start of Cooper Kupp's woes and his not separating from cornerback, stretch that hasn't gone any better. Rams Nation only had 1 target, 1 catch in this game this past week. As in that 12 personnel where it's 2 tight ends, 1 running back, 2 wide receivers, 29 times Cooper Kupp was a receiver on the field, only 4 times. So they chose purposely to have Demarcus Robinson or Jordan Whittington play more on those snaps than Cooper Kupp. And I think that's something to keep an eye on, Rams Nation. How much of a factor is he going to be? Because he's going to have some clutch catch when man-to-man coverage is. They're going to say, all right, Cooper, we've been seeing it. If we see it, they see it. Beat our guys, and he's going to have a clutch catch. Of course, DeMarcus or Jordan or Tutu and everyone else too, but that's going to be really key. When DeMarcus is inevitably in with Puka, we know Puka's probably going to beat Quinion and like he did in Darius Slay. Can we win those matchups when it's time? And I think another key is only one jet sweep, one tight end screen, and no running back screens in this last Monday game. That cannot be the case against the Eagles defense this upcoming Sunday matchup. We have to run jet sweeps more often. We have to run screens. Only one, and I know Higbee being out probably really tiered into that being the case, but Kyron can catch, run some damn screens with them. We have to keep this defense honest with everything. Formations, play calls. It cannot be a Matthew Stafford save us day, or we're only going to run up the gut in 12, 13, another 11 personnel stuff. We have to mix it up. So those are my keys. And then defense. Can you not show up and be like, oh, we're just going to play it? No, whatever they have to do to dig in deep. This is where the mental aspect of football and any pro sport is. You got your freaking ass beat down last time. Show up and say that's not going to happen again. As pro football, as we all know, is I'd say half mental and then half physical. I think those have to blend in this game coming up and be like, we are not going to allow ourselves to get bulldozed again by this whole line and not allow Saquon to have another career day. And it's really that simple, because can you scheme it up like we did in that Week 12 matchup where you say we're selling out to stop the run? It didn't matter. We got bulldozed. Can we scheme up to stop A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and take away Jalen Hurts' running ability? Sure. But at the end of the day, playing a team this physical, it's about want and willpower. And I think it's that simple. Can this D-line continue their good play from Monday and say, we want it more and we're not going to allow ourselves to get embarrassed? And I think it's really that simple on defense. Special teams, can Ethan Evans continue to kick well, punting the football? And I think he will. But then can Cardi make cold weather, slushy, snowy, rainy kicks when it's going to be needed? We're not going to be scoring up and down this defense. Let's just be honest. We're going to have to make some long 45-plus yard field goals in crappy weather. Can he make those kicks? And if he does, we're going to stay in it and have a chance to win this game. But really that simple, gentlemen, in my opinion. But Paul, I know you had tons of keys throughout this episode, but what about special teams? What about specifically on defense and specifically on offense?
Yeah, just starting with the special teams. The first thing when you were saying that stood out to me from the Minnesota game. There was after the Rams had scored and they were driving, they took a bad penalty, and it was third down. And just to show you when we were talking about mindset, where McVay's mindset was, it was 3rd and 20 something. Old McVay would have tried to get that first down, but you know what he did? He called, I think they completed a 12, 13-yard pass. He protected his kicker. It went from a 56-yard kick to a 43-yard try, and Cardi nailed it. That's the difference right there. That shows you where McVay's mind is at. And right, this game, and I like your intro because I'm right there with you. I see it the same way. Listen, there are not that many coaches that you can say that they are absolutely a game changer. Vic Fangio is one of those guys, right? He's not just a coordinator. He's a game changer. In any one game, he can design something that's just going to, shut you down. This chess match between McVay and Fangio is worth the price of admission. And this is what probably is motivating McVay all week. I guarantee you he has not slept. I guarantee you he is not. He's been on that whiteboard. He's been doing all these things, watching film. This is what he is up for. And that's why I'm really confident that he's going to come up with some way. He's going to get this team ready. And on the defensive side of it, I'm right there with you. Listen, they got to take that personally. Chris Shula has to take it personally too. And that defensive staff, that defensive room, the door should be closed all week, man. Right? because you're absolutely right. They are better than that. They know they're better than that. And this is a chance for them to exercise that demon. Absolutely. Just like they did with that other picture that was up in the locker room. Take that Saquon picture, put it up in the locker room and said, yeah, this is our goal. But having said that, you can't forget about, Jalen, right? The kid is a beast. You start letting him run around. So the D-line, you need a big reminder, hey, this is not Sam Darnold. There's a big difference between going after Sam Darnold and going after Jalen. You have to be disciplined after go. That's the key. Don't let him run around, right? He's going to get his, but try to contain him, make him throw it from the pocket. Bad mechanics, that's going to play in your favor. When he's running around not set, that's what you want. So that's on the defensive side of it. Special teams, you're absolutely right. The weather and the kicker, rookie kicker, kicking in like the worst weather conditions that you could think of is the Beast Coast. Absolutely, right? Sprinkling in a little rain, a little snow, and you know what's going to happen, right? It's going to wind up coming down to Cardi. You know that's what's going to happen. The stage is being set. Right? That's the story.
You're probably 100% right. It's going to be what kicker? Because Jake Elliott. I don't mean to interject on your keys here, but their kicker has been sketchy, and it's like which kicker is going to be least sketchy in this game?
So don't be surprised if these coaches go for it. That it's not. I wouldn't be surprised if they're even close to smelling the end zone. They're going to go for it. And the offense stays on schedule. Basically is going to be the most productive. It's that simple. These defenses have to be smart. Take your chances. Get the offense off schedule in a bad weather game. That makes a difference, right? That one time you throw them off on first or second down that gets them into a third and long, it's going to kill a drive. So on offense, it's simple. Get it. Good offensive coaches are really good at math. They know how to play percentages. If I let this player get 12 touches, he's going to get to the end zone eventually, right? Whoever gets it to their big boys, right, as many times as humanly possible, who's ever the most effective at getting it to their top 3 players, is going to win this game.
Yeah, I guess it's pretty simple, gentlemen. Do the Rams get their best players involved? Right, we named all of them, and they just want it more than Philly in a game where they got embarrassed on both sides of the ball. So, I'm looking forward to this. But with that said, Rams Nation, I mean, we have to give our early score predictions. Of course, we don't know the full scope of who's in and who is out for the Rams of this game. Hopefully, nobody. It's a 0. Everyone is good to go. We don't know who officially is going to be starting at linebacker, inside linebacker for the Eagles. We had our guesses earlier. We don't know how all those guys are going to play or not play, or who's banged up officially, and all those things. We understand that. But we still got to give you our early score predictions here. And I'll start with you, Mark. What do you think is going to happen, man? Rams win, Rams lose, Rams triple, quadruple overtime? And what's your score?
Well, the over-under is 44. I'm taking the under. I think both teams are going to play it relatively safe on offense. It could be a turnover that really swings things in one direction with this kind of weather. I'm not picking against the Rams. I refuse to do it. This team is pumped. They are on a roll, and I know common sense says the Eagles are going to win this, but I'm throwing common sense out the window. I'm picking our Rams to win 20-17.
I mean, I wish that score would be.
Did I leave you speechless there for a second?
No, I was just thinking, I was like, I'm going to be stressed this entire game. I was just thinking of your score and how it's like going to be nail biting field goals and all that. I was just like, oh man.
Yeah. The way Ram fans should approach this game is we're kind of playing with house money, kind of. We didn't expect to be here. And we're in a divisional round playoff game with one of the best teams in football on the road in bad weather. Hey, let's hope they can pull it off. But, we're lucky to be in this situation in the first place. Look at it that way.
Nah, fair, I get it. But I was just visualizing this low scoring defensive battle. I was just like, man, it's gonna be crazy. But how about your score, Paul? What do you think is gonna happen, man? Quadruple overtime as well? No, I'm just kidding. Hopefully not.
So it's like I said, I think it's going to be a short game because both teams are going to try to run it. I'm hoping, even though if the weather goes south, it doesn't go fully south, right? So a little bit of snow, maybe just cold. The Winter Soldier will handle it. Optimus Night will take care of business. But I think the weather's going to go south a little bit, so I'm going to go. I actually have the same score that Mark has. I have it 2017, and here it goes. Last 2 minutes, the Rams are driving. They blitz Stafford, and as he's about to get hit, he throws it down the seam, and Cooper Clutch comes down with it, sets him up, and Cardi bangs it through. 2017 victory.
Whew. Well, I'm not.
I like it.
I'm having the same thoughts, gentlemen, here about Rams only hit 20, but I'm thinking what I talked about earlier. 20-19, it's going to come down to somebody missing a kick. Obviously, I'm thinking maybe Jake Elliott misses the kick there, or misses a PAT, I should say.
Just say it, Ian. Just say it. Michael
But I think
Hoyt blocks an extra point.
Somebody's got to do something in this. Somebody has to make an insane play, just like Okello strip sack, Jared Verse scoop and score. There needs to be something like that going on. Whether it be Hollywood Hoyt, someone on this defense, someone on off. There has to just be something insane go on. And I'm hoping it would be a missed kick, as I predict 20-19 in this, as maybe a block PAT saves us, or a block field goal attempt late, or Cardi makes a late field goal. And it's going to be a stressful game. The weather is going to make it feel even more stressful, as I'm sure we're all going to be watching it together, stressing. All of Rams Nation just it's going to be one of those games when the weather is just going to make everything just magnified than what it is. And again, real quick, Rams Nation, again, 37 degrees, snowy, slushy, rainy. It's inevitable. And if it doesn't happen that way, thank God. But like I said, I expect low scoring affair, and it's going to be a Kyron game, and hopefully a game winning Cardi field goal game in some way, base or fashion. So, there we go.
And when they asked Iron Kyron about playing in cold weather, you know what he said? I was built for this. There it is.
There you go. Yep. Yes. And oh man, Rams Nation, I'm going to be stressed, as I have been this whole year. Oh well, so be
Hey,
it. But
just enjoy it, Ian. Just enjoy it. It's going to be
I do.
fun.
I enjoy the ride, but it's more. It's hardcore. Shout out to everyone out there who feels the same as me. But Mark, your final thoughts before we get out of here.
Hey, like I said, man, I find this, I'll be stressed just like you when the game starts, but I'm going to try to enjoy it and just celebrate this Rams team. Regardless of what happens Sunday, the future is bright. Such a young, star-studded defense. We'll have Optimus 9 for another year or two, maybe.
Hopefully.
A lot of great young players on offense, too. If we come home with a win and get to the Super Bowl, it's just icing on the cake. It's just going to be super sweet, because if we can do that, we could do it again next year. And how would that be? That would be it's a good time to be a Rams fan, regardless of what happens Sunday.
Yep, I agree. I mean, Paul, your final thoughts before we get out of here.
Yeah, I'm just going to go with what Matthew Stafford said at that locker room speech. He closed it out. He said, and he knows what he's talking about. He said, "Get your mind right. That's it. This team is talented enough to win. They just got to get their mind right, and they will be there." So I think that's going to be the name of the game, and it's coming from Staff. He knows the drill, right? He's an absolute warrior. Give it to your big guns. The Rams have plenty of weapons, just like the Eagles have plenty of weapons. Trust your big guns to get it done. And, love to the LA Ramley. This one's for you.
And one thing that I wanted to share, and sometimes comes down to this: who's got the better coach? Who's got the better quarterback? I'll leave it at that.
Ian, show them the trophy. Show them the trophy. Show them what they're playing for. Show Ram Nation what's going down.
The CQI index says, JB Long, voice of the Rams, like to say, do you have a good coach? Yes. Do you have a good quarterback? Yes. And then do you get lucky with injury, with people not getting hurt? We got 2 of those. Hopefully 3 of those will be in our favor again this upcoming matchup, and I like our chances based off that solely. But Rams Nation, my final thoughts. May the best team win, of course, but whatever your game day ritual is, I guess whatever you wore for that Monday night game, wear it again, as I will do the same. Same socks, same whatever, same shoes, same hat, same glasses, same jersey, same shirt. just do it, as I am a believer of those things for sports related purposes. As the Super Bowl run, I wore the same jersey and combo of stuff every playoff game and it ended up working out. And I will do the same for this hopeful Super Bowl run as well. As if things do go our way, real quick, I'll share this with you, Rams Nation. It could be Rams at Lions, which I'm sure a lot of us would have no problem with. Or if things go our way and some other things fall into our favor, Washington Commanders coming to LA for the NFC Championship game, as that would be a dream to host that game. And I will be there for that. So keep in mind, Rams Nation, whatever your positive juju you have been unleashing, let's hope for an NFC Championship home game coming up in a week. That'd be freaking fantastic. But with that said, Rams Nation, thanks for tuning in on this Keys to Victory episode on the Rams Up Roundtable here on the Rams Up Podcast Network. And like, subscribe, share this video and podcast with all your fellow Rams and football fans. We very much appreciate it. But I'm Ian. That's Paul. That's Mark. Thank you very much for tuning in, and go Rams, baby.
Right there.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Right there. Washington, see you at SoFi.